there is a creeping pessimism and a creeping concern with Latinos who are like, as optimistic and hopeful as I am about America, there is this heart-wrenching, growing sentiment saying this country doesn't fully want us, doesn't fully love us, doesn't fully consider us part of the table.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Latino Vote podcast. For all of you who've been around celebrating America's 250th anniversary, I want to bring in Mike Madrid, who I think got a flag tattoo put on his ass, but I am not sure.
I did it 250 years ago when I was fighting in the Revolutionary War.
That's
so yeah, it's just, gotta remember those big days.
Ooh, 250 years of democracy, and we're still hanging on. Some would say by a thread, but we are hanging on.
I think we're going to do okay. I'm always been a little bit of an optimist, pissy about all this whole Trump era stuff, but I think we're going to get through it. It's going to get a little bit rockier before it gets better. It's kind of like when you're coming down from 30,000 feet and the turbulence starts to hit, but you're going to be fine. We're going to be fine, America. We're going to make it, and we're going to be better on it when we get through it. So hang in there.
Two things. One thing is, you should know I went down there and I was asked to do a podcast on the grounds of the 250 celebration. Stay with me. I was representing the podcast. So if you see something on social media, the other three people, one Democrat and me, that means two Democrats. I know one and one is two. And two Republicans. One was Aaron McGuire and the other was Ashley Davis from your Bush days. Wanted me to come down. And the other one was Kirk Bardello from MS Now, who you know. And they all represent different. Some of them do podcasts together. So I went down there and there was 5 people watching. And 3 of them were probably, advanced guys filming us all. But I was really uncomfortable to even put on there that I was down there. But I was like, I'm going to be a team player. I'm going to celebrate my country. And I talked about my story about like only in America could Mike Madrid become the big fancy leather shoe wearing, rich Mexican house owning. Same with Chuck Rocha. Farmhouse. Get to travel around, went fishing over the 4th of July because I don't want to be like, only in America can does mine and Mike's story actually happen. So I talked a lot about that and leaned into that more than all of the negative shit around what I think is happening to the country. Because I'm like Mike, I have a lot more hope than I have hate. And I like to live in that area. My therapist has told me to concentrate more on the hope. So I'm doing that today. But we do have to talk about something negative, and I want to talk about this shooting that went on in Houston, in our community, in the Latino community. For any of you who have been watching on social media today or yesterday, we're recording this on Thursday because I got back last night because, as y'all know, I get out of town on the 4th of July because my street turns into World War III. Anyway, get off my lawn. I'm not going to do the old man thing no more. And tell you that a man named Lorenzo, Salgado, Araujo, shit, I knew I was going to mess it up. Me and Mike worked on that for 15 minutes before the show. Anyway, he was killed by ICE. It was a tragic, tragic story. I wanted to say his name, speak his name. I watched his son last night on the airplane and got so upset and emotional watching the story of he's raised 3 boys. He was a construction worker, owned a construction business. Him and 3 of his co-workers were going into a Houston neighborhood to finish up some houses they had been worked on. He had built his own house. His boys had went through public schools. His boys are all U.S. citizens. This guy had no criminal record other than 45 years ago crossing the border undocumented. He was 52 years old, had raised a family, built a home, was part of the community, and got shot unarmed, trying to get away from the cops because they were, ICE. And I think a lot more will come out about this story. But if you're going to listen to the Latino Vote podcast, I want to speak Lorenzo's name, tell the family that, we're thinking about them, that this has to change. And I think this is happening more and more, Mike. I know you just got alerted to this story because it's just happened, but I think it's an ongoing theme of what the terror is in our community right now.
Yeah, it's that ugly reminder of who we are, what we're becoming, and what we do to other human beings. Do you think there's going to be the same outcrying and outpour as there was with Good and the reaction that we saw in Minneapolis? Do you think it's going to?
I was wondering the same. It's a great question, Mike. And last night I really took a deep dive, and there was a big protest in the streets. So far this morning, you have seen all the Latino Congress people and Black Congress folks in Houston have all out there in front of the cameras. I think it's just as big. I just think because of our callousness, it hasn't showed up in everybody's algorithms, but in mine, it definitely has. Now, how far it goes, there's been folks already monitoring like how soon it took other politicians to say something about it. But the bottom line is a man who shouldn't have got killed, who had come to this country like my family did, didn't break any laws other than coming here undocumented, owned a construction company, had never had any run-in with the laws, had raised 3 grown boys and had grandsons who all were in college. Some have graduated college, some of them have their own life. It's the American dream that me and Mike were literally just talking of, like, only in America does that happen. That's why people want to come here. That's why we should make it easier for folks who want to follow our laws and play by the rules to come here every day. We don't want people to do us harm, but that's so much the minority of folks who really want to come. So I just want to lift up Lorenzo's story. You should read it. If you haven't seen Lorenzo Salgado's story, you should just Google it. Look at what his son said yesterday. And Mike, I want to pivot. We keep talking about Latino, talking about identity, talking about what we're going through. I knew Pew just put out some new numbers, and you don't let me talk about numbers, so I'll kick it over to you.
Yeah, and this is a perfect segue actually from what you were just talking about. It's a heartbreaking story. Pew Research, Pew Hispanic Research is the gold standard, as you know, for Latino public opinion and attitudes. They just came out with an enormous survey, 75-page study, Chuck. It's a lot of pages for a guy like you. So I condensed
Is there
it for
crib
you.
notes? There better be a crib note.
I'm the crib notes for it. I'm going to walk you through it because
Oh,
our
shit.
good friend Mark Hugo Lopez, who I think is probably the best Latino researcher in America, and has been doing this his whole career, has come up with a report that is talking about how Latinos' identity of ourselves, of America, and how America views us has just really, I think, reset, I think, the way we're going to be talking about identity and identity politics going forward. A lot of it reaffirms a lot of the things we've been talking about on this podcast, Chuck. What they have found and confirmed goes back to my early work as an undergraduate at Georgetown University, which is generational attitudes are absolutely everything. And targeting, when you're doing campaigns, targeting Latino generational voters is absolutely the way to do it. But there's this really sad underpinning. And again, this is the kind of, I think, the to take it back to your story about how there is a creeping pessimism and a creeping concern with Latinos who are like, as optimistic and hopeful as I am about America, there is this heart wrenching, growing sentiment saying this country doesn't fully want us, doesn't fully love us, doesn't fully consider us part of the table of the American dream. And a lot of people are saying, well, of course, obviously, duh. But there's I think the more troubling aspect is there's just this extraordinary, not just a generational split, but partisan split. So if you're a Latino Democrat, the likelihood of you saying that you have dealt with oppression, that you see systemic oppression, that you believe that America is not a welcoming place, goes up considerably. And if you're a Republican, it goes down considerably. And that's a real troubling development because in a world where we're partisanizing everything, Chuck, everything, to see that our own perceptions of Americanness and American identity are also so correlated to party almost makes this bridge kind of unbreachable, impossible to maybe nothing's impossible. It makes it more difficult to cover that bridge between what is between us, what we need to use to connect each other, not just as Americans, not just as human beings, but as a solidified Latino community uniting on a lot of these issues. Whatever those issues are, is finding a common agenda where we can agree on things. And so we'll put a link to the study in the notes below. Take a look at it, peruse it. You don't need to read all 75 pages. There is an executive summary. You can read the top lines. Pew does an amazing job of coming up with these graphs. But it also speaks very, very deeply and closely to a topic that Chuck and I have explored probably ad nauseum here on the show, which is the way the parties approach Latinos, the way they see Latinos are very, 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 very different. It's why I think the Democrats have hit sort of a roadblock. And it's why I think that the Republicans are winning votes despite themselves, not because of them. As I think everybody knows, I'm a critic of both parties on this. I'm an advocate for my community. I'm pushing both parties to learn to do better. But this really, for the first time, I think explores deeply why they're kind of locked in these cul-de-sacs, both parties, why they're unable to get beyond themselves, and why it's up to us as a community to start finding that common agenda. So, Chuck, take a look at it. It's great. I think you'll love it. The link will be in the show notes below, and maybe we'll get some of the researchers on board and have a discussion with them about it at some point.
Well, what the hell did it say? Did it say we're doing good or doing bad?
Well, like I said, it's not we're doing good or doing bad. It's how we view ourselves as Americans and whether or not being a Latino helps in America. And again, if you're a Democrat, you think there's a lot more racism and oppression, and America doesn't want you here much, much, much more so than being a Republican does. And that's what I'm saying is the way Latinos talk, the way Democrats talk to Latinos is with a shrinking share of the population that feels that way. As Latinos become more and more second and third generation, if you have heard that before coming out of Mike Madrid's mouth, it's because I have been saying it for a long time, and this study confirms all of that. What it's saying is those voters are moving further away from that immigration experience, less ethnically anchored, view ourselves more American than Latino in a lot of instances, especially by the fourth generation, which is growing. And that's why when Republicans talk about their Americanness and American identity and not talking about their separateness, they're picking up that share of the vote. And so it's not, are you doing better or worse? It's what your perception is of how you are viewed in this country, how you view yourselves, and which party you're choosing because of the way the parties talk to our voters. That
Interesting. If my dad, father Pete Agapito, if he was the immigrant, would my dad be the first generation and I'd be the second?
Yes.
So that means my son.
If your father naturalized, came over and migrated.
No, my father was born here.
Okay, then who came here? Who migrated?
My grandfather.
He's first.
Okay, so I'm third. Yeah. My son is fourth, and my grandsons are fifth.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's what, and my grandson's like, anyway, the only Spanish thing they think, I'll make them call me abuelo for that reason, so we can have this conversation, right? Because they're as wide as a driven snow.
Right. And that's a tradition.
And living in Pittsburgh, they're not in community.
There you go. So it's going to be hard to have them anchored, right, with this ethnicity. And that's not uncommon, Chuck. That's more common than not. So you and your son are the voters that are the Democratic Party is losing. And you've talked about this more eloquently than I have, which is weird. But you're like, look, I'm a redneck Mexican who grew up as a union worker in Texas. Today, I'd be the Republican, and Mike Madrid would be the Democrat. You're absolutely right. I mean, it's brilliant insight. That's what's happening is this change, this generational changes. Your grandchildren will vote different than your son, that vote different than you, that votes different than your father. Their perceptions of how they are, who they are in America is everything when you're communicating to Latinos. And that's what both parties are missing. That's what they're missing out on, and that's what this research gets to.
Well, then I highly recommend folks read this. I haven't had a chance to look at it yet. And I find it interesting. I think Mike, he's picking at a scab with me because of the way that we look at communicating to voters. Me and my business partner, Luis, yesterday were working on a special project. We were kind of debating on, in the data, the Democratic Party and folks that we work for want to, and it's nothing wrong with it. You want to maximize the dollar spent because you've only got so many dollars. So they lay over these models of voters where you don't talk to, if you think about it from 1 to 100, Mike, you'll understand this, is that if 100 is somebody that always votes and always votes Democratic and 0 is somebody that always votes Republican, or you turn about a turnout score where 0 is people, let's do it this way. 0 is somebody who never votes. 100, they've never missed an election in their life. So a lot of times folks will take a bottom scale and take everybody under 30, under 40, who have a very minuscule voting record and say, we're not going to communicate with them because it's inefficient. And guess what? They'll pick a number that's 70, 80, 60 and say, all those people above that always vote. Let's not talk to them either. And when you start going down that path, Mike, and you know this, I'm just talking because you're sitting here, is that you start leaving out generations of people over long periods of time who never get spoken to, right? Because we are the smart party. I won't talk about the Republicans, but I'll put this on us. And so when we think about that and how we talk to folks, then we're leaving out a lot of people that would want to at least have an argument about something. So we were just talking about going broader. It's like, we've got money this cycle. We should go to folks who normally aren't communicating with and start having a conversation with folks about the shit that they care about. I don't know why I went down that rabbit hole, but it just made me think about yesterday about me and Luis having this conversation.
Let me tell you, you're really hitting on something. Let's explore it a little bit more. I want to pull on this thread. We're finally, I know, Chuck, we're California. We're a little bit slower than everybody else with our vote counts, but we're finally getting, really close to certifying our elections. Like all the votes are still not in and counted, but we're close. And what it's showing is a massive surge of independent voters. We have an open primary in California. So you don't have to be a Republican or a Democrat. You can be no party preference or independent and show up and vote. But the real surge was with Latino independents. In fact, what the early research is looking like is Javier Becerra may not have come in first if it was a closed primary.
Just Democrats voted.
If just Democrats voted, he may not have been. He probably would not have beaten the Republican nominee. Would have been the top vote getter. But the jury's out on how much closer he would have been to Steyer. My point is, Latinos are the most likely to be independent voters. They surged 27% increase of independent voters. 27%, huge swath of that are Latinos who voted for Becerra in this primary. And I'm bringing that up, Chuck, because nobody communicated to those people. If you're a campaign, you're not targeting independent voters unless you're an independent voter group. And I was involved in a consulting, operation that did that, and obviously was very successful. The Republicans talk to Republicans, the Democrats talk to Democrats. They put them on these sliding scales. They narrow those universes so small that finally they're trying to maximize their spend, meaning make the most efficient use of the dollar that they've got. And they cut the universes so narrow that they're more efficient, but what's the point of persuading 3 or 4 voters when if you spent money differently, you could get 20, 30 new voters? And that's the right way to approach campaigns now, I believe, because we're seeing a lot of non-voting people show up during this Trump era. You're seeing it on the Republican side. You saw it in Texas with the Tellerico Crockett race. You point out something jaw-dropping. It's like a third of those voters had never voted before who showed up in that primary in Texas.
30% had never voted in a Democratic primary, and 12% of them had a Republican voting primary history.
That's nuts. Like nobody was targeting that. Nobody was targeting Republicans. They were voting on their own volition because they were paying attention. That's who you want to be communicating with. So I couldn't agree with you more. Is we've got to be thinking differently about who is persuadable with these voter groups. Texas is a perfect example of that. California is another perfect example of that, and on and on and on. The more you look at the data, the more you're realizing the way we have been grinding data down with all these pointy-headed consultants and nerds has been wrong. Or it hasn't been wrong. It just hasn't been right. How's that?
No, I agree with that. And I think the last thing I'll say on this, and we should switch gears, is that if you think about the closed primary in New York City, so you end up with what you got in New York City because there's only Democrats voting, and you have a low voter turnout of less than 20% of the people that could vote in a Democratic primary. And of those, let's say just over half of them voted for one of these Democratic Socialist candidates. And that's kudos to you. You win. You get to go be the congressperson, but it represents less than 7, 8, 9% of the overall electorate of a congressional seat. Now, everybody thinks that that's the path forward when you've only gotten 7% of the electorate represented because it's a closed primary and it's New York City, just like in Los Angeles or any other urban areas. It's much different than the swingy areas. So I think that's the alternative to what Mike Madrid's talking about, of like open access of where these Latino voters are. Right, Mike?
That's exactly right. Yep, you nailed it.
So let's jump over to the latest thing that's going on as of yesterday. This is, again, Thursday when we're recording this. Diego will probably get this out on Friday or Saturday. But some shit's going on in Maine, Mike. And I've been in constant contact with the 27 Latinos up there, and they are all saying the same thing. Half of them was with Graham Platner, another half don't know what's going on. But what we do know is that he has dropped up. Let me he has suspended his campaign. And let me give you some, the big word I think is a chronological order. How about that, Georgetown? A chronological order. He has suspended his campaign. For those of you at home, he has until Monday to officially say, I am out of the race. He is not out of the race. He has just suspended his campaign so he can have some say so, he thinks, in what the process looks like to replace him on the ballot. But he has till Monday to get off the ballot to say, I'm out. Right now, he's just said suspended. That's really important. The next timeline you should think of, if he has to be out by the 13th, the party then has till July the 27th to have an alternative person who's the Democratic nominee to be on the ballot representing the Democrats. What they're proposing, if my sources are right, coming to you live from the Latino vote, I got sources. Sources are telling me that they're going to have a convention in the state of Maine, which is about as big as 3 precincts in East LA. But they're going to have a 600-person convention to where they come together and have their words, open democratic process to have, speakers and have folks come and make their case to come out of that convention with the Democratic nominee for the U.S. Senate in a state that the Democrats absolutely have to have if they have any chance of regaining the Senate majority. Mike.
This is why I love politics. You can't make up a bad Hollywood screenplay.
You can't make up this shit.
What? Okay, so let me. I know we all know, and everyone's following the Graham Platner and the rape allegations and all this stuff, and we can talk about what everyone else has talked about, which is who was to blame for having this flawed candidate and why was everybody covering for him. But I want to talk about that. I want to talk about what you just were talking about, and I want to explore it a little bit more because this, in many ways, this is kind of lessons learned from the Biden-Kamala Harris handoff, handing the baton over. What the optics are of the system being rigged, as your old boss used to say.
Millionaires and the billionaires.
And then I want to ask you, well, first of all, and good for Maine for having a process. Now it's just deadlines. Thank God this happened now and not like in 3 weeks, right? Or maybe
that's how you know it's Democrats doing it and not Republicans, because Republicans would have been like, this is good, but let's hold it 2 more weeks. Let's wait till he can't get off.
Or the Republicans. Now the reaction's totally different too, because the Republicans would be like, it's just a rapist. Run him for president.
Yeah, that's right. Just one. Trump's got 28 or something.
Yeah, I mean, come on. Yeah, a little rape. So look, I need your brain on this a little bit more. Are those 600 delegates? Are they chosen by county that are added? How'd they come up with 600? Did that number exist already? Like, is the Democratic Party of Maine scrambling right now to figure out a process to get to convention? You can't hold a statewide vote. You can't do that. So you have to have as big a convention as possible in a very narrow time frame to make the argument that as many voices that could be heard are heard. The question then becomes, how do you become a delegate? And there's like 3 or 4 names being bandied about right now. So we're going to have a good old-fashioned brokered convention.
And I almost want to go.
Yeah, I want to go check it out. We need to do like a Latino vote summit to talk to the 3 Latinos in Maine.
We're going to call it the Working Class Summit because I think that's where we get in. That's our end up there.
I think we ought to have, you know what, maybe we ought to find a Latino and just run a Latino. I mean, why not? Why not? If you organize the 20 Latinos in Maine, maybe get a new U.S. senator.
Let me answer a couple of your questions. First of all, I'll talk about the leading candidates. But first of all, how did they come up with this? The one thing that I have found from my sources, y'all, I got sources. From my sources is that they don't want just the 70 or 80, what they call Central Party Committee making this decision. Think of them, you Bernie Krats out there, as the DNC superdelegates. Like, these are the party insiders who run all of the party in Maine. They control the state party. They're elected committee. If you're a Democratic Maine committee member, you are not some lefty. You might be. Some of them might be. In many states, the Bernie lefties took over the party, like in Las Vegas and in Nevada. But anyway, I digress. So they want to be more than those people. But those people absolutely get to be there because they are the party. They're elected. They should be. This is a party election. And so they start with that. And Mike, I don't have all of the details, but they're going to expand that by geographical areas based off of density. So you get more, well, there's more people in Portland than there are in the entire state, y'all. Think about Maine. If you look at Maine from the bottom to the top, the city of Portland is a congressional seat. And then the rest of the entire state has 780,000 people, just like Portland does. So there's just 2 congressional seats there, and they have to be distributed equally for this convention to work. And then what I think that they'll do is they'll dig down into the precinct level, since they have the committees that probably represent either state rep or state senate districts, and they'll expand that a little bit to, I would call them precinct chairs and stuff, to come up with that number of somewhere around 600. Graham Platner and his team are just really wanting, I'm not saying I agree or disagree, so y'all can stay off my ass on Twitter, is that he just wants to make sure that the people, he said last night when he did his video, it was funny. He talked about how he didn't do it and how this is all rigged against him. He really played himself as the victim last night. Anyway, I got a million things to say about that, but I'm going to keep my mouth shut and just say that the leading candidates right now, for those of you at home, you should know they have this ranked choice system there. And there was probably 5 well-qualified people that could run statewide. Mike, you're going to appreciate this. None of them wanted to run against Susan Collins because she is a machine up there. And she has been elected for 30 years. She's been elected. This is her 5th 6-year term, just for all of you at home. And so everybody was like, I think I'll just run for this open governor seat. I think I'll leave that Senate shit alone. So the guy who got second place, the guy who actually won on election night ended up getting second. His name is Troy Jackson. Because after, like, California takes a long time to count votes. In Maine, it takes a little bit to go through all this ranked choice shit. And Troy Jackson ended up in second place. He's a Bernie guy. He's a white guy. Was a state Senate president and a logger. But he's a worker. He's a working class guy, union guy. Seems like the great fit. Ain't the most moving fella in the world. He's no Graham Platner. But he is a white.
No Nazi tattoos. No
Nazi tattoos. Right. He does not have that I know of. He could have had one on his. Ain't nobody seen his ass. But anyway, he don't have a philosophy like Graham Platner. Graham Platner is the most well-read working class guy I have ever met in my life. And his
because he ain't working class.
Exactly. And so Troy Jackson is there. There's a guy that's Southeast Asian, Mike, an Indian fella who's a doctor. That sounds racist when it comes out of my mouth, but he is an Southeast Asian Indian healthcare specialist who was on TV every day during COVID in Maine and kind of became a star because he was good at it. Third is the Secretary of State, another white woman, progressive, good, another guy who was in the Senate race before. There's a plethora of people who want to do this. So this will be a shit show up in the piney woods of Maine.
Piney Woods. I'm with the Latinos for Maine. Mainers for Latinos. That's what I'm saying. Is we got to find ourselves a Latino logger or a Latino oyster shucker. I'm in. Look, if you're listening to the podcast, if you think Mike Madrid's right, let us know in the comments. Share it.
Jesus.
Well, let's go find a candidate. Why not?
I'll tell you this, me and my wife, who now have some privilege, we've spent some time in Bar Harbor. And oh my God, I am wearing Maine. This is a mountain in Maine, Katahdin. Me and Ebony climbed this mountain.
You planned this.
I did not plan this. My God, this is so good. So those of you who subscribe to the YouTube, you're getting to see not only my big muscular chest, but this Katahdin patch on the patch right here. That's a mountain in Maine. I was going to say, not to make this about me, which I always do, is that the service industry up there, Mike, in Bar Harbor, the guys cooking, the guys doing the shit, we're all Latinos.
Well, I'm telling you, we're everywhere. We're everywhere. So I think, Chuck, we ought to maybe let's go stir some shit up a little bit. Add a little salsa.
A few conventions.
Throw a little salsa into that maple syrup.
Mr. Chairman, I point of personal privilege, Mr. Chairman. I'm in the back, Mr. Chairman. I know how to take over a convention. I have run enough union conventions where I would baffle them with some Robert Rules of Order.
That's what I think we ought to do, man. You have a new Latino that adds to the, join Ruben Gallego and Alex Padilla, Cortez Masto, Ben Lujan.
Speaking of those guys, this is a good transition because we got to get out of Maine. There's 14 voting Latinos up there. Let's talk about where there are some Latinos where me and you are going next week. So the next recording after this one of the Latino Vote podcast is going to come to you live. Not live. It'll be recorded and then put out from the City of Angels. The City of Angels, Hollywood, East LA, La Raza, and for the folks who hang out with Mike Madrid, Beverly Hills. Boom.
This is going to be the 50th anniversary of the National Association of Latino Elected Officials. There will be thousands of Latino lawmakers, city council members, senators, a future California governor, I heard from a little bird, told me will be closing the conference out at the end. This is a big moment. This is a big day. And Chuck Rocha and Mike Madrid will be keynote speakers with a live broadcast. They're from Los Angeles at the NALEO Conference. So excited about this, Chuck, because I love being able to go to NALEO. We've been to a couple, we've done these before. It's always an incredibly enthusiastic and excited audience. We've got a lot of friends there from all over the country. And this will be our first live broadcast from NALEO. I'm really looking forward to it. How about you?
It'd be really cool. There's so much history, and I've been watching a lot of the Netflix to get my histories, and there's just so much rich history. And if you read again Mike Madrid's book, it'll tell a lot of this stuff too, and how Mike's family left the city, moved out, and started doing that. We are all over there. I remember the stories from my old buddy Albert Jaquez, God rest in peace. Like, what a great guy Albert Jaquez was with Unidos back in the day. And he would talk about growing up in East LA and the walkouts in schools, right?
Yeah.
And then they moved outside of, I forgot where that city, the area right outside of East LA where folks started moving to. And it's this whole, watching our culture there in LA and the becoming home. Last episode, and I just re-listened to our episode this morning early, Mike, and in the last episode, for those of you who heard, Mike talked about Roy Ball Allard, who had helped start this organization, his daughter was the congresswoman there forever. And there's so much changing of the history of our community in and around Los Angeles. There's more Latino congressmen and Latina congressmen in the LA area than anywhere in America. From Linda Sanchez to Nanette Barragan, I could do this all day. Jimmy Gomez, the old Becerra seat, Gil Cisneros, Tony Cardenas. All of these folks are all, Orange County, and our buddy Lou Correa. This is the heartbeat of the community. When folks go down, this is where it is. So to be there and to be within community, we always talk about all these congressmen, but I think the thing I think about and enjoy the most, Mike, and it happens all the time, is this young woman who is a new city councilwoman in some obscure place in America, to your point. Somebody that's the water manager or something elected in North Dakota. Those are the ones where I'm like, shit, Mike Madrid's right. We are everywhere. And when we're here doing this, go ahead, Mike.
We're in Maine.
We're going to be in Maine for damn sure.
Yeah, so look, that's right. I've been working with NALEO for 30 years now. I was talking to Erika Bernal, who's the new executive director. She took over from the iconic Arturo Vargas, who will be there and be celebrated by the community. Just left. This has been a 50-year startup. The growth of NALEO has been explosive. It was founded by Congressman Ed Roybal in East LA 50 years ago, when it was just a smattering of Latino elected officials. There are now tens of thousands all over the country, elected and appointed officials. And now you're seeing, U.S. senators, obviously all the members of Congress that you mentioned all over the country, governors now. So it is a moment of celebration. I think it's a moment of reflection too, as we enter the next chapter. As I've been arguing, 2020 was really opened, I think, the new chapter of Latino politics. 2024 certainly did. We're in the early stages of the next chapter. And in many ways, it's a good thing. It's a great thing, because we're maturing as a community. We're maturing as lawmakers. We're maturing as political consultants. There are people in Maine that are, Latino voters in Maine and Montana and Tennessee, places that we never thought, Chuck, that we'd ever have our folks there and our voters there to target, but there they are in literally every state in the union. But we're also, I think, realizing that in order to change completely, we're going to have to question some of our old assumptions. That's where that Pew Research that we're talking about comes in really handy. Can you have a Latino community that combines fourth generation, third generation, second generation, and recently naturalized immigrants under one umbrella? The place where that question is going to be answered is at the NALEO Conference on this 50th celebratory annual conference in Los Angeles. So I know many people who are listening are going to be there. Looking forward to seeing you. Please, please, please come up to Chuck and I. Let us know that you're a listener. A lot of our listeners are there. That's why I love going to the conferences. Everybody wants to talk about episodes that we visited on. We find a lot of new guests to be on the show at these, and it's such an honor to be asked to not only keynote Chuck, but to do a live show of the summit. I think has been really a real blessing.
Just heads up for y'all, right next to Maine is a little state called New Hampshire, and there's a Latino that we're working for named Christian Uridia. And Uridia is running for Congress, and New Hampshire won. Just so all of you know, we are everywhere. We're not making light of this. Christian's a big listener of the show. Christian, we love you. Thank you for coming to some of our events in the last couple of weeks. Also, for all of you know that we're not going to be that far when we get to Los Angeles from the Beverly Hillbillies. And that's what it's going to be like when I roll into town. Come and listen to a story about a man named Jed, a poor mountaineer bear. He kept his family fed. And then one day he was shooting at some food, and up through the ground comes some bubbling crude. Hoo-wee!
That's pretty good. We need to have a Latino version. Turn into a corrido for you, Chuck. A Latino Beverly Hills version of
the Beverly Hillbillies. Chuck Roach, the Mexican redneck, comes rolling into. And the last reminder, and we're going to let y'all go on this, is that we're going to have a little film crew out there. We're going to do some Mexican food tasting, right, Mike?
Well, that's the goal. We're trying to put it all together right now. We still got a few days to make it happen. We're going to settle the argument of who's got the best Mexican food, California, specifically Los Angeles, or is it in Texas, in any region that Chuck's choosing. So round one will be Los Angeles. Let's see how this works out.
I hope the round two will be with Bobby Polito in the Valley. Also, shout out to former Congressman Tony Cardas, who called me this week and was like, look, I got a couple of restaurants I want you and Mike to try when you're in LA. Because at the NALEO Conference the night before, we go live, Mike, on the 15th of July. On the night before, for all of you who are at NALEO, there is a new documentary out about Congressman Tony Cardenas' life, and they're going to play it at the NALEO Conference, Mike, on the 14th. I found out this week, and when he called me, Tony did, to give me some recommendation, because he's also like my brother. Hey, let me tell you what you and Mike should go eat at. But I was like, yes, Tony, yes, Congressman, we'll do that. But y'all should make sure you go a day early and see this amazing documentary about his life. Thank you for tuning into the podcast this week. If you're lucky enough to still have your mom and dad, give them a call, tell them you love them, and we're going to see all of you in Los Angeles next week. Take us out. Let's go, baby. Listen to my story about a man named Jed. Y'all be good. Bye.